we are studying about a way to monetize blueprint creators. So if you create your blueprints in the network and somebody uses your blueprint, the transactions are going to pay fees, and part of the fees are going to be collected to the blueprint creator. So it's another way to incentivize developers to build their software because they can monetize their software.
Welcome back, everyone, to Brazil Crypto Report. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and today we are exploring Hathor, which is a blockchain ecosystem heavily focused on asset tokenization, compliance, and trust in Latin America and beyond. And I'm joined today by Hathor co-founders Jan Martins and Marcelo Brogliato, who will be telling us about some exciting new developments for the network. Jan and Marcelo, it's great to have you both here.
Yeah, happy to be back here.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. So Jan, last time we spoke, we recorded at Web Summit Rio back in April of last year. So great to have you back on the show. And Marcelo, this is your first time, so welcome. Really excited to have you here. I've been listening to a lot of your content in Portuguese, so excited to get the English language download here. But maybe to get started, Jan, if you wouldn't mind just maybe kind of reintroducing yourself quickly to our audience, and then Marcelo, I'd love for you to go and tell us a bit about kind of like your vision behind Hathor and how you got involved in the project.
Of course, yeah. I'll be very short because people are already bored of me. I'm one of the co-founders of Hathor Labs, which is the main development company behind Hathor Network. We started this journey back in 2018, and I guess Marcelo can go longer about it because he was, the brains behind it. So since 2018, working on this project. I'm currently CEO of Hathor Labs, and I have a background in software engineering. And actually, in just 2 weeks' time, to the date, we're going to be completing 5 years of mainnets of Hathor Network. So that's a huge milestone for us.
Yeah, congratulations on the 5 years. That's incredible. It's eternity in crypto, as we all know. Marcelo, what about you?
Yeah, Hathor started out of my PhD thesis, where I studied scalability of blockchains. So back in 2017, 2018, there were like this big growth in the blockchain space. Lots of people coming, and the network, the fees skyrocketed because the networks couldn't handle the amount of transactions that were coming to the network. And I have a background in engineering. I'm a computer engineer. So I use this background to develop like the architecture of what turned out to be Hathor. So it was in mid-June 2018. And to validate the idea, I went to Switzerland, to the Crypto Valley conference. And there I learned that there were people thinking about all sorts of use cases for blockchains, but they were all complaining about scalability. And that's how I knew, okay, there's some space and there's an opportunity there. And that's how Hathor Labs was created. Later, it was incorporated like 6 months after. On my way back to Brazil, at that time I used to live in Rio. On my way back to Brazil, I did a quick stop in Portugal where I met with Jan and Pedro, another co-founder, and they agreed like to join me in this company to build this from scratch. That's the very beginning. So here we're talking about June, July 2018. And then we got to get our network launched on January 2020. And now we are celebrating 5 years of the mainnet. We're almost there in 13 days.
Counting down. No, that's super cool. It's super cool to hear the origin story here, and how long you guys been grinding this out for, good, 6-7 years now. So Hathor has a really unique approach to scaling, as you mentioned, and tackling this blockchain trilemma, the famous trilemma of security, scalability, decentralization, right? So normally, like, you kind of have to pick two of these things to focus on. You have to kind of sacrifice one, right? So you can be secure and scalable, but you're not going to be very decentralized. Or you can be secure and decentralized, but maybe you're not scalable. Marcelo, let's talk through like what is your idea around this kind of hybrid approach that you've pioneered, and maybe how does this compare contrast to like other types of chains?
When I started studying about scalability, the first thing was to figure out what was wrong, what was the bottlenecks around the blockchains at the time. So Bitcoin was it still is like the biggest, and Ethereum was like growing like crazy. And the problem, they had like different issues, different bottlenecks, but they shared some issues. One of the issues is that they had to process transactions just after the block was found. So the full node was like doing nothing for like some time, or doing like low work. And then suddenly when new blocks found, there's like lots of work to be done. And that's one of the reasons. And the rates of the blocks were like another reason. So I was doing some research about the topic, and I learned about the work from Sergio Lerner, a guy from Argentina, where he proposed a DAG model without the blockchain, just the DAG model, like only transactions organized in a DAG model, on a graph. And that approach has some flaws. It's very, very hard to put that to work. And then I found a hybrid, a way to get that idea of the DAG with the blockchain and make them work together in a way that we can process transactions as soon as they get into the mempool. So we can spread the verification all over time. So they are processed on real time when they are received. And when a new block arrives, we can like very quickly, almost instantly confirm that block. And that's, in short, what provides scalability to this hybrid approach, where transactions are not organized in a Merkle tree as in a traditional blockchain. They are organized in this DAG model. So there's some sort of form in the ways that transactions are placed there. And the miners, when the miners find a new block, this block kind of instantly confirms the whole DAG at once. And in short, that's what gives like this scalability. And then we made some decisions about, okay, what can we build on top of this? Because this is like basic architecture. And then we decide, like business-wise, that it made sense to create a blockchain that would natively support multi-chains, multi-tokens. So we support multi-tokens since day one. It's very compatible to what it's possible to do with ERC20 in Ethereum. And also, we started with this view of going more B2B. And now we are pivoting. But yeah, we're going to talk about this in a minute.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. So it's you've almost got this. It's like this hybrid approach where you've got the DAG model, and then you've with the security of the blockchain, and you're saying miners, like there is actually a proof of work element to this, as I understand it, right? Would you mind just maybe kind of giving some color on it? Because I think most people have, unfortunately, it seems like proof of work is kind of like a dinosaur thing right now, outside of Bitcoin. You just don't see it very much, right? Maybe talk a bit about like how that all kind of fits into this equation.
Yeah, actually, the architecture would work with different kind of consensus. So instead of proof of work, it would work with proof of stake. It was like a product decision to go with proof of work because we believe it's safer and it provides a more decentralized environment overall. And what we did is specifically with the proof of work is that we pegged in Bitcoin. So we provide a way for people to mine Bitcoin and Hathor at the same time. So miners, every Bitcoin miner is very welcome to mine Hathor tokens together. So they can, without a loss, they literally have no loss, no energy loss, nothing. And they're going to secure both networks. And that's one of the reasons that we could grow our security quick. Because these miners, it's for free, so they just do it. And we believe that the proof of work network with a very high hash rate, mining power, is safer than a proof of stake network.
Not to like dive super deep into the tech here, but I just have some questions, or we'll ask one question about this, then we'll move on. But how would you, like for a layperson, like how would you distinguish like what you have built here versus some of these other like DAG based systems, whether it's like thinking back to like IOTA, back in like the 2017-18 era. And then even today you have, you have like Hedera Hashgraph and even like Avalanche, which as I understand, they use kind of like some sort of like a DAG type consent. I'm not entirely sure, but how would you maybe distinguish like what you've what you've built from maybe some of these other, I guess we'll call them chains, but even though they're technically DAGs, but like what would be like the kind of the key differentiation there?
Okay, I'd say in an architecture level, the key differentiation is that let's talk about IOTA first. IOTA is they were already there when I started doing my research about scalability, and they were at the time. I don't know if they changed because I'm not following them, but at the time, back in 2018, 2019, they were a literal implementation of Sergio Lerner's ideas.
Mm.
So it's basically a DAG of transactions, and transactions confirms transactions, and there's no need for blocks. And there are some very well-known attacks that are that we don't know how to solve without having blocks for this kind of structure. IOTA at the time they had a very centralized way of solving this problem. So they had like a central point of authority in the network that would say, okay, there's a conflict. This is the resolution to prevent these attacks. That's how they did at the time. In the next years, they had some ideas on how to overcome and decentralize everything. But as far as I know, they could never get this done. They had these plans, these ideas. I don't know the reason. In this sense, we can tell that Hathor's architecture is kind of inspired on what IOTA was in 2018, because it was the literal implementation of Sergio Lerner's ideas. I'm not really sure about the other networks. The others that I've seen, and I've done some research, they try to do DAGs of blocks, not of transactions. They're trying to find a way to overcome the idea of orphan blocks. That's one of the problems of a proof of work structure. Not really a problem, but an incentive problem, because miners, as when their blocks are orphaned, they lose their money, they lose their rewards. That's one of the reasons that there are so few huge mining pools where miners can't get together. So the idea is to reduce a lot the number of orphan blocks, because it's like just a waste of resources. And many of the networks that I've seen, they try to use this idea of the DAG in the blocks, which is different from what we do, where we use the idea of the DAG in the transactions to put some form, some order on the transactions, but not in the blocks. And the blocks are just like a regular blockchain, just like Bitcoins. And the blocks confirms transactions in the DAG. That's how different it is from these other DAGs. And I'm not sure exactly how Avalanche uses DAG. I've never heard about it. Maybe they use, but I don't know.
Yeah, I may be incorrect in suggesting that. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so let's talk more about Hathor, and you guys approaching 5-year anniversary here. So maybe like Jan, if we'll turn to you here, would love for you to give us maybe like a quick overview of some of the highlights and successes of the project over this time, and maybe talk a bit about the state of the project currently before we dive into what you guys have coming up next year. I saw you guys had some interesting news recently about a pretty large like precatory note that was tokenized on Hathor, which at least according to the news report that I read was I think it was like the largest in Latin America to be tokenized to date, which is pretty exciting. Maybe talk a bit about some of the uptake you guys have had recently, and then we'll dive into what you guys have in store for 2025.
Sure. One other thing that I would add, besides the scalability that Marcelo mentioned, that he tried to do with Hathor, we also added of Hathor being easier to use. So one other problem that we see with blockchain networks is it's very difficult to implement a solution, even for developers, to integrate with blockchain. So what we tried to do with Hathor network as well was to make it easier for people to use. So I'd say the two main differentiators is like scalability and also ease of integration. And by enabling anyone to create a token very easily, being native in the protocol, you remove a lot of the barriers for companies like the RWA. It's funny because when we started, RWA was not a thing. Like we didn't use this term like RWA, right? So nowadays it's a buzzword, a term. But yeah, I guess our most successful projects are the ones involving RWA. We have Tokenizadora, Vortex QR Tokenizadora, which is the largest, was the first STO project to launch in Brazil. And that's been not only the first, but I think it's the largest as well, because nowadays it has over $50 million of tokenized assets, of securities, approved by the Brazilian SEC, the CDM. So it's been running for over 2 years now, almost 2.5 now. So it's proven very successful. It's under a sandbox of the CDM. So they're testing how the blockchain technology can be used for securities and for tokenizing, for tokenizing securities. They started with, I think, 2 or 3 different kinds of assets, and they since have expanded to over 6 different assets that can be tokenized. So I'd say so far it's been going very well. I hope not, but so far no problems detected, at least technology-wise. And yeah, the other one, well, we also have other use cases in terms of more Web3 stuff. Back in 2021, when NFTs were the thing, a very successful market of NFTs. Some projects raised over $500,000, selling NFTs. So that was also fun to watch. Technology being used with such massive amounts of money, but also, coming back to RWA recently, as you mentioned, there's this. I think it's the largest tokenization of one single asset that happened in Latin, which is the. I'm not sure how is it in English. Is it like a precatory note? Because this is a very particular instrument in Brazil. So I'm curious.
Yeah, we don't. It's a word that exists in English, but it's not like very commonly. Like I'd never heard of the word when I first saw it. I had to go look up what it meant. It's not something we use super frequently.
Yeah, but I guess it's basically a debt that has a court order that's kind of demanding to pay, and it's usually government debt. So the government is demanded by the courts to pay for it, and they have to set aside a part of their revenue from their budget to pay it. So it's a very interesting market. It's very big in Brazil, but it's still kind of a bit obscure. Sometimes you don't understand how it goes. I think most people, like, I've never bought one, and the reason for that is because it's as I said, it's very obscure, and you're not sure what kind of assets are there. To analyze it it's real difficult. So by doing that, the company behind it, they're trying to bring more transparency to this project, to this process, by using the blockchain. Having all the data. What's interesting is that when they created a token, the token mint transaction, they added information. There's a PDF link. They added information, about this. So I guess they're experimenting as well, because let's be honest, everything done under RWA right now, everything's kind of experimental, right? The volumes are growing, and it's really nice to see more success. But everyone's testing and seeing how it can, let's say, unleash this revolution that we've been waiting for, and definitely, RWA it's by the market is much larger than any other like crypto market that we have nowadays. So if it does become a reality, we're sure going to have a lot of interesting assets tokenized on chain.
Yeah, and maybe let's. I didn't have this question in my notes here, but maybe we'll put a quick pin in this, and because I'd like to maybe get your perspectives here on what it's kind of been like trying to do like RWA tokenization before, like as you mentioned, before that even became a thing, really, like before anybody knew what you were talking about. And I know, because I know you guys have been doing, not, I think, maybe in Brazil and elsewhere, other countries, like trying to kind of get some of these projects off the ground or do some BD on this front. And like, what has that process been like, right? When folks just cared about NFTs and DeFi, and you're coming around pitching, tokenized precatories to people. Like, what was that process like?
Well, it's definitely a long process, because first, whenever you're dealing with enterprise, everything it's a long cycle. But on top of that, you have the complexity of having to educate people about what a blockchain is, how it can be used, because most people just read about blockchain, and for them it's kind of a magic technology, right? And I imagine you also have this thing because you talk to a lot of people, you're in this space for a long time, so you understand what a blockchain is, what it can do. And a lot often when we talk to people in companies, they have this idea of blockchain being able to do kind of magic things of, okay, I have this and it's going to automatically transfer or automatically going to make my things safer. And, you have to explain to them, what a blockchain is, and what features it has and what it can do. So, apart from the complexity of already selling to an enterprise, you have the complexity of trying to explain this technology that's very new I mean, nowadays it's much more widespread. A lot of people already understand it. You have a lot of consultancies, people who can help educate and build projects. But back in 2019, 2020, it was it was even harder. I mean, even today is very hard, but 5 years ago it was like extra hard.
Yeah, and after they learn about the technology and how they can use that technology in their business model, or they can adapt their business model for to get some benefit out of the technology, they usually have very quickly hit a legal wall. So they have like all the lawyers discussing if they can do this or that, how they would pay taxes, if the money is flowing out of the financial system. There's lots of legal stuff that might generate like lots of liabilities for the company. So this conversation, usually after they understand a bit of the technology, very quickly they turn to legal issues and tax issues, cross-border tax issues, and I'd say that many projects they stop there. They when they learn about all the difficulties, they say, "Oh, okay, that's maybe too hard," or maybe the competitive advantage is not enough to pay for all the legal trouble that they're gonna, all legal expenses that they're gonna have if they decide to launch that kind of thing that they're planning to initially.
Yeah, it's not an irrational decision, right? People look at this as a cost benefit analysis, using that type of filter, and like, okay, this is maybe just this is interesting, but it's just a little bit too complicated for what we can really deliver right now. And I suppose on the project side, it's a bit frustrating for you guys probably because you're like, oh, we have these things in the works potentially, but everything's under NDA because we're dealing with all these corporate folks. We can't talk about anything. And then everyone's like, well, how come you guys don't do any marketing? It's like, well, because everything's under NDA. So
I've heard this so many times. Yeah.
yeah, like kind of vicious cycle of like, we have interesting stuff, we can't talk about it. But anyway, it seems like you guys are at a bit of an inflection point right now, 5 years in, right? You've got a lot in the roadmap for this coming year. Looks like the most notable thing that you're launching is nano contracts, which Marcelo would love to get the kind of the brain dump from you on this. As I understand it, these are basically like super user friendly smart contracts. Maybe talk a bit about these and what's the significance.
Of course, yeah. I mean, as Jan mentioned here, at the beginning of Hathor, we had the scalability benefit. We had like some advantages in the scalability, and we decided to focus on make things easier to use in a blockchain. So we have this native way of creating tokens in Hathor, where you don't need to write a contract at all. You don't need a smart contract to get a token running in our network. It's very safe as our native token, the HER. And the idea is to bring this simplicity, the same mindset into the smart contract world. That's how nanocontracts are born. The first discussions about nanocontracts, I guess, they happened in mid 2019, so it's been a while. But we were very focused on our RWA, and the challenge in RWA is not related to smart contracts or anything. So that's one of the reasons that we haven't really prioritized this project in the past years. But now it's our full focus. It's our way into the DeFi and the Web3 world, this space, this huge new space that has been built, that has been growing like crazy. And our approach is just like, okay, we need to provide an environment where it's safe for use cases, for entrepreneurs to run their projects on. I'm not saying that the others are not safe, but the problem with the others is that they need a developer that needs to understand very deeply how a blockchain works, how the engine of the blockchain works, so they can develop a smart contract that's safe enough for that use case. And so far, history has been proving that it hasn't been working very well. There are a lot of bugs and issues and contracts being cleaned up. People are literally stealing tokens in many different projects because of different bugs, different issues. And most of the times when you read the contracts, it's not obvious why the bug is there, because it requires a deep understanding of how the engine of the blockchain works. And that's the kind of innovation that we'd like to bring. We'd like to bring an engine that is closer to a regular computer, because it's not true that Ethereum's engine is like close to how a computer works. So many engineers, many very good developers, they make mistakes because they assume that certain line of codes would work in a way and it doesn't. And then they are surprised when the bug occurs. So we are trying, on one way, we are trying to bring like an engine that is closer to how a computer works. So we reduce the complexity for the developers. So they don't need to have a deeper understanding of how a blockchain works in order to create a software that's going to run on top of a blockchain. That's one thing. And another thing is that we believe that many of the contracts, they are like literally copies of other contracts. So people are copying and pasting all the time, but every time you copy and paste, so let's say that you want to launch your liquidity pool, you can copy and paste liquidity pool source code. But then you need some audit, because who knows if you made some change? Who knows if you changed one thing that's going to change the whole security stuff? So we need the whole auditing process and everything, which is expensive and complex, requires a lot of work, a lot of resources. So our idea there is to bring what we call blueprints. So every contract in Hathor is a blueprint, and a blueprint can be reused by anyone in the network. So if you find a blueprint that's useful for you, let's say there's a liquidity pool that's very successful, it's very safe, it's been there for a long time, and it has like huge reserves. And you say, okay, it's safe enough for me. You can just say, okay, what blueprint is it using? Okay, I want to create a new liquidity pool using the exact same code. And it's guaranteed by the network.
Oh, so that's the key difference, is that even on any other network, I could just go and copy and paste the smart contract code and create my own, I create my own thing, my own liquidity pool, my own whatever application. But there's no guarantee. I might just be copying and pasting somebody else's errors into my own application, right? I have no real way of knowing that unless I go through this whole auditing process, which, as you mentioned, is expensive, and especially in the bull market, it takes a long time because these guys are really in demand, right? It's like probably like best job ever is to be like a sales guy for a smart contract auditing firm during a crypto bull market, right? Nice commissions on that gig, I would assume. But you're saying that using these blueprints that you've developed, you can provide like a level of like the network is actually guaranteeing essentially like the security and the authenticity of this source code, so people can you can actually kind of take it and copy and paste it with that degree of security that I'm not just like copying and pasting somebody else's kind of bad contract. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. That's the idea of the blueprints. That's part of the simplification process that we think that are important for smart contracts. So this, and then the engine is like closer to how a computer works. And there's one more, is that we allow people to develop smart contracts in Python, which is a high-level language, programming language. And we are working to add support for Solidity. That's the most famous programming language for smart contracts today. But when we add support for Solidity, we are kind of inviting everyone that has already been developing for blockchains to go to our network and try our technology. But when we add support for Python, I'd say that we're inviting a whole lot of other developers that are not working on blockchains, and are also inviting non-computer engineer guys. So people with backgrounds in physics, in mathematics, in data science, all other sort of knowledge, to come and to test their own ideas in our network, because they all know Python. Python is very popular. There's lots of tools in Python. And our idea is like to welcome all these developers to our net, new developers, like people that do not understand about blockchains, to come and develop in our network, because it's safe and it's in a programming language that they're used to. So they know how this thing works.
Let's talk a bit about what types of applications you guys see, this being quite useful for. You've mentioned that you're kind of, you were really heavily focusing on tokenization, RWAs. Presumably, you're going to continue focusing on that, but also kind of pivoting to a little bit more kind of like the the Web3 DeFi, kind of the degen use cases, I suppose, if you want to use that terminology. But kind of more like the crypto native, the Web3 native crowd. What are some of the types of applications that you guys are either expecting to see, or you're looking to see built once this functionality is rolled out?
I'd say that initially it's the most obvious ones maybe like just copies of whatever is running and has been successfully running on other networks. So I'd say liquidity pools, all kind of incentive contracts or liquidity program contracts, provide liquidity and to allow people to create tokens and trades in a safe way. And in this sense, we are trying a new technology that it's going in the next version of the nano testnets. So it's still under tests, but we have a technology that prevents MEV, maximum extractable value, from that miners use in other networks. So we have an anti-MEV system where people cannot play with traders. So I guess we can provide a safer environment for traders. So because nowadays, if you say, okay, I want to do like day trading, or you want to be a trader in Ethereum or in any other a network that has MEV, you are kind of the greatest fool, because they are playing with your transaction to get your profit, to get your profits. So you say, "Oh, I never can profit." Yeah, obviously, others are profiting on your behalf. You are kind of the greatest fool in these networks, unless you are a big player, you know MEV, and you play the MEV game. It's very hard to get like a very good deal, a very good transaction in a blockchain. And that's how many companies, even in Wall Street, many big funds are doing to make profits. They are using the MEV system. So we think that an anti-MEV system is something that's worth for the whole trading community and the whole blockchain space. And we're also working on a solution that we found.
Well, that's super interesting. I'd love to dive into that. We probably don't have time to like go super deep into that. That's probably its own conversation, honestly. But it's one of these issues that's just been hovering around for so long, right? Even before like the proof of stake transition for Ethereum, and you had the rise of like the flash bots back in, I forget what year that was, a few years ago. But it's one of these issues that's been really kind of plaguing, or I guess depending on what perspective you're coming from. I guess if you're one of them. There are some people benefiting from it, which is presumably why it's still like around, right? But anyway, I'd love to, maybe we can save that for another conversation, because that's a super interesting topic in itself that I frankly don't understand as well as I would like to. But let's talk a bit more about your roadmap here. I know you've got a bunch of other projects in the works for 2025. I was looking at the development roadmap you released recently, and you've got things like an EVM bridge, like MetaMask snaps, like a dynamic transaction model, if I can say that properly, and also even like a grants program as well that looks pretty comprehensive to kind of help dog food some of this stuff. Maybe Jan, we'll turn it back to you, but like, what's the tell us about the roadmap. What do you guys have in the works? And then we'll start with Jan, then Marcelo, if you want to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, currently nanocontracts, that's what we call our smart contracts. Nanocontracts, they are under testnet. So we're in the testing phase and the development, and we have several other, let's say, products that are in the same sphere. So for instance, the MEV, the EVM bridge, it's something so we can either have tokens that are native from Hathor to go to EVM chain, or we can port tokens from EVM world into Hathor network. For me, the ones that I'm most excited about are stablecoins. We understand that stablecoins are very important for the crypto ecosystem. So, whenever we have this bridge operational early next year, we can have USDT or USDC or some other stablecoin in the network. And I'm sure that that's going to unleash a lot of different use cases. You also mentioned MetaMask snaps. Although we do have our native wallets, since day one, we know that MetaMask is just widely used. They already have a lot of security features. So they have these MetaMask snaps now, which is kind of making MetaMask more extensible. So other networks, not just native EVM chains, can make use of it. So it's a really nice system. So we can also have our own wallets there, and take benefits of users who already used to MetaMask. They don't need to install an extra wallet, and we also get to use all the security infrastructure that MetaMask has, because I guess they're the largest crypto wallets, and it's kind of proven by time. Other than that, I think we added, Marcelo already talked a bit about the anti-MEV mechanisms that we have. You mentioned the dynamic transactions in Hathor for creating a token nowadays. It's native. you don't have any transaction fees, which it's a big advantage. Not only because of the cost, but just so that you don't have to deal with handling the native token, right? How many times you have, let's say, USDC on a chain, and then you try to transfer and say, okay, shit, I need a native coin as well. So that's kind of a major UX problem for crypto. So with Hathor, no transaction fees, but you do need to have a native token. We're now coming with a hybrid model because you're going to be able to still use this one, but if you sorry, I forgot to mention how we achieve this. So whenever you create your token, you need a deposit of 1% of ACR. So if I want to create 100 young coins, I need to deposit one ACR, and after that, I don't pay any fees. We have this new model where you don't need to pay any deposits, but you do have to pay transaction fees later. So that's what we're calling the hybrid model. With meme coins nowadays, we see a lot of builders that want to create a coin with a huge supply, let's say like 100 billion coins. And we know that with the deposit model that we have in our network, that's not feasible currently. So we're trying to, as you said, cater more to this degen use cases and kind of unlock all the barriers that we feel that still have.
Yeah, and I'll just add that in this roadmap of innovation, we're also getting close to ship what we call our SIG hash bitmask model, where transactions can be partially signed, so you can very easily do atomic swaps, or you can very easily have more than one party doing trading somehow in the network without escrows or any other. So it's very easy to build some types of different DEXs on top of the network. And together with smart contracts, let's see how creative our community is going to be. But I guess there's plenty of opportunities to build different kinds of DEXs and different kinds of solutions for trading using this partially signed transactions, as we're calling.
Oh, that's super interesting. I haven't heard of that concept before, actually. That's super interesting. Maybe let's dive into kind of the state of your community right now and just the Hathor ecosystem in general. It'd be interesting to kind of just get a kind of flyover of, like who's building what, like what are some of the things that folks are most interested in? Like what parts of this roadmap are people really interested in? Maybe whoever wants to take that one.
Yeah, I can talk about it. Yeah, I forgot to, in the last question, forgot to talk about grants, and I think with community, I think it's a good opportunity to talk about it. So yeah, but our community, like global, I mean, obviously the founders are Brazilians. We have a huge team in Brazil, so we naturally get a lot of use cases here and quite some community here. But I mean, our community is global. We see from statistics for the app, the wallet app downloads, that we have users all around. Huge in Europe, in the US. So, I mean, we cannot just cater to a specific geography right now, but it's all over. And obviously, as a layer one, as a protocol, we have to attract builders, right? As Marcelo said, with Python, we feel that we have, a huge community of developers that we can attract. A lot of people ask me, okay, how are you going to compete with the other chains? How are you going to steal developers from them? And say, we don't need to do that. We have to onboard developers who are currently not on the blockchain. I mean, having said that, we are looking to build the basic, let's say, infrastructure that most chains need in order to be successful, to have DeFi. So, a DEX, we already have a DEX on testnet that's been running. It's great. So those are finance. And with the grants program, we are looking to build other infrastructure projects out there, a name system, lending protocols, all the usual suspects, let's say. So, I mean, that's how we go about extending. We have a huge community. I think over 60K people on Twitter, 10K on Telegram, and trying to now grow more on the developer side. And I'm sure there are a lot of interesting challenges that we're gonna have, but definitely the grants. Also planning to do a hackathon also early next year. So that's also going to be fun to see which kind of products people are going to create. I think for us with smart contracts, the idea is, I mean, as I said, you have the usual suspects, all those products that people are already used to. But I'm excited to see what else people can do, right? Especially when you can attract people who are from outside of the space. Hopefully we're going to have some very creative ideas and very different ones, not just, kind of the crypto usual way of thinking.
Yeah, well, it seems like you guys have a pretty unique, like, novel value proposition for being a layer one. Like, it's not just another kind of copy paste like EVM chain, or not just another like layer two that is basically the same as any other, or nominally different perhaps. And it seems like you guys have a kind of a refreshingly like kind of novel take on everything, from just kind of the fundamental like first principles of how this thing was built, up to kind of these new smart contracts we're talking about, to some of these other bells and whistles you're rolling out. And I'd be interested in just getting a bit more color on like how do you guys see yourselves? I don't necessarily want to use the word like competing, but because it's like, this isn't really like a zero sum game, right? If you believe in blockchain, like, you're not in this because it's a zero. You don't think it's a zero sum game, right? But like, how do you like? What's the kind of niche that you guys see yourselves? Assuming that we are going into a bull market here, which at least everything crashed pretty bad yesterday, but like up until yesterday, it was looking pretty good. And there's gonna be a lot more mind share in the space. When there's a lot more mind share in the space, there's also a lot more just kind of crazy stuff floating around that's attracting people's attention. So it's not necessarily easier to like garner attention and mind share in the bull market. But like, how are you guys kind of thinking about this, as far as like how are we going to kind of like carve our niche here?
Yeah, I'll take this one quickly and then pass on to Marcelo. Yeah, I would just say that it's spot on what you said about the bull market. Yeah, definitely bull market is it's good in terms of liquidity, but in terms of building, it's sometimes very complex because it's very competitive. You get all these crazy projects since there's so much liquidity. So sometimes it's hard to stand out because people are doing just crazy stuff, and you have people coming that you're just expecting fast wins. So it's not kind of the easiest time to just build. Sometimes the bear market it's a good time to build because you also see who are the people who really believe in this and in this technology. So I'll just add that, and I'll pass it to Marcelo.
Yeah, I think that the bull market's really good because it also, besides the liquidity, there's like lots of newcomers to the blockchain space. So there's space for everyone to attract and to sell their technology. In our case, I guess we might offer a very environment where these newcomers can feel very comfortable because it has like an easier learning curve, and they can, if they are developers, they can build, they can test, they can use in a very simple way. They don't need to learn about the complexities of blockchain engine, or they don't need to learn a new programming language. And we also haven't mentioned yet, but we are studying about a way to monetize blueprint creators. So if you create your blueprint in the network and somebody uses your blueprint, the transactions are going to pay fees, and part of the fees are going to be collected to the blueprint creator. So it's another way to incentivize developers to build their software because they can monetize their software.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a way, because today, whenever you create a smart contract in Ethereum, everybody copies you, and you simply don't get paid for anything. And in our case, you would be paid for your blueprint. So our idea is, of course, there's lots of marketing and activities to let people know what we're building, but I think that we are working on a set of features that might be very, very interesting for newcomers, and maybe for people that are already in the space. Some people, they think that it's very frustrating to learn Solidity. It's a steep learning curve. Sometimes it's expensive because they have to pay to have access to courses and the knowledge, and many companies they are very scared about doing projects using smart contracts because they need 1, 2, 3 audits, and they're never sure whether they're going to get robbed or not. So I guess the set of features that we're offering, simplicity, security, and the blueprint idea of like monetizing developers, might be a good good argument, a good reason for these developers to come to our network.
Yeah, I like that. It's very well said. I think like the feature set you guys have is definitely something that's unique, and it's also having like the EVM bridge, having the MetaMask Snap integration, having having some of this compatibility with other ecosystems, et cetera. Definitely will kind of helps kind of that flow, right? That creating like a two-way street essentially between what you guys are building and some of these other projects. And also for, I think that's kind of the holy grail, is just bringing in like new people into the ecosystem, like new people into the blockchain world, right? So it's the folks the developers out there who haven't caught in the bug yet, and they're still like, okay, this time around I'm going to actually learn this. Providing like the easiest on ramp possible for those folks, I think will be pretty critical. Maybe I guess just maybe like one or two more questions here, and we'll wrap it up. But like maybe tying the conversation here back to RWAs and tokenization, which is where we started. We've been talking about all these kind of new features and bells and whistles you guys are building. But I mean, what's your outlook on the RWA side here for the Hathor network in the next? I mean, it's going to be a pretty hot narrative the next couple of years, it looks like. So just wondering how you guys are kind of positioning yourselves there.
Yeah, one thing that we just touched briefly upon last when we talked about RWA, I think Marcelo talked about the legal environment, and I think this is also one of the biggest changes that enable the market to have this shift towards RWA, right? Because even today it's still uncertain, but there are already a lot of initiatives and regulations. But like 5 years ago, there was nothing. We're just like old west. So yeah, I guess it's more positive now, in the sense that it's much more clear how this works, how governments are facing it. Here in Brazil, the government has been pretty advanced in this case. It's actually leading the process, in the Brazilian central bank. So I guess it's a very good, as you said, it's a very good market like narrative. It's probably going to pick up in the next few years. And I mean, Hathor continues to be inserted in this market. Again, just launching your own token, creating your coin, and doing the integration is super easy. So, I mean, I guess that we're very well positioned there. And now also with the more Web3 products, with DEXs, Lightning protocols, we're starting to see how the more traditional, RWA tokens and products are playing with the DeFi and DGen. So we're starting to see a mix. So, since Hathor already is well positioned in RWA, now we're, also targeting DGens and Web3 DeFi, all that. It's going to be interesting to see if we get some, crossplay, some of these worlds just mixing. And, maybe we're going to have RWA tokens in DEXs. I mean, nowadays it seems hard, but some of the things that 5 years ago seemed kind of impossible are just coming to reality now. So you never know, right? So I guess that's one interesting thing to see.
Yeah, maybe just to wrap up here, would love to get any final thoughts or anything else that either of you would like to add that we haven't touched on as of yet. And then how can folks find you if they want to get in touch or if they want to learn more? Maybe Marcelo, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add that I'm very excited to see how people are going to use the technologies that we're building, and whether they're going to have an impact or not in the space. I mean, is an anti-MEV system or mechanism important for traders, or is the simplified version of smart contracts that they're building, is it really simple enough to welcome these developers and to make them choose to build on our networks instead of other networks? So I'm very excited about learning about these things and seeing how the things that we're doing are going to impact the ecosystem, because it's always like this: a new piece of technology comes, and if it generates value, it grows very fast. So I'm very, very excited about learning how this thing's going to unfold. And the bull market helps a lot because it invites lots of people. It brings lots of attention to blockchains. I mean, 1 year ago, everyone was saying, okay, now blockchain's dead. And now people are starting to get excited again. And they start talking to their friends, to their families, to their coworkers, all about crypto. Have you seen Bitcoin has crossed 100K? And so lots of new eyes looking to the space, which basically for us means new developers and new people and more people trying to build stuff for these newcomers. So more money and more brains coming to the space, which I think it's really, really good. And I hope we have a chance to show them that we have a competitive technology that they can use to build whatever they want to build. It's safe, it's fast, and it's like you can trust it. I guess that's my point.
Great. Over to you, Jan.
Yeah, just quickly, my final message is to invite anyone who wants to build a product on blockchain technology, either something RWA, more enterprise. We have experience already with financial products, with Brazilian regulator, so we got you covered. Or if it's something more degen, crypto focus, also now with nanocontracts, written in Python, very easy. And then we'd love to see what people come up with. So that's my final message, just inviting anyone, or if you have a friend who's looking into it, just ping them. Hathor.network, that's our website. In there, you can find our X, Twitter. You can find our Telegram community, our Discord channels. So please do go there and check it out. We're more than happy to help everyone.
Awesome. Hey, well, Marcelo and Jan, congratulations on everything you guys have built so far, and this is probably what, your third cycle now through in doing this. So best of luck on this one, and congratulations on everything you've achieved, and really appreciate you guys coming on the show and telling us about what you have in store for next year. So wishing you all the best of luck, and thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on Brazil Crypto Report.